introduction, GoldFinX is a financial technology company. It's a fintech company. We are developing a creative. We have developed a creative way of funding a segment of the unbankable community of the 40 million of artisanal gold miners around the world. I guess this is
down.
Down?
Yeah.
Down, yeah, the arrow down.
Yeah.
Right. So basically, GoldFinX is, if we were to image our mission in life, is basically we are the Uber of gold mine financing. Essentially, we're putting together a group of unfinanceable, traditionally, gold mines and investors together. We've created this platform in a way that we're able to creatively raise money in a way that wasn't possible before, and render the possibility for pretty much in a very democratic way any type of investors around the world to be able to tap into a traditional investment that is usually reserved to public companies and large funds, and then this is done in what we call in a fair trade way, which we will explain later on. Madam Khan?
Just basically 他说就是主要就是就像那个 GoldFinX 就是像我们大陆用的滴滴一样，是一个就是投资的一个平台，给投资者。
The company essentially is incorporated in Singapore, but based around the world. We have people and representation offices in Canada, South America, nucleus in Europe and Middle East, now Hong Kong, soon mainland, and obviously incorporated in Singapore.
公司主要就是它的就主公司是在新加坡，然后还有其他的就是分布在各个世界都有分公司。
GoldFinX is basically a spin-off of a larger company and a more established company, but of Atlas Group of companies. The chairman of Atlas Group of companies is Philippe Bennerek. Philippe is also CEO and co-founder of GoldFinX. But back part of the portfolio of companies, past and current, there's currently 11, 12 companies still operating. So this is basically the backing of GoldFinX. So GoldFinX is not one of those fly-by-night, couple of 18, 19 years old with ponytails CEOs from their basement that created a white paper and they're now starting to raise money. You know, there's a lot of gray hair and a lot of lost hair at the control of the company. But essentially Atlas has been funding startups and early stage company for the past 24 years. GoldFinX is the most recent project. Philippe is also a close friend of mine, but also has funded 2 of my companies before. Most of the people that you're going to see further down, which we'll identify, are people that I've worked together in previous enterprise. So this is more of a plug-and-play type of situations for us when it comes to operating and executing the business plan.
GoldFinX 它不是就是说就是它旗下有很多公司，不是说刚刚才建立起来的。公司最早已经有24年了。你也看到它很多公司都连在一起的，不是说就是单独的一间公司。
Obviously, this is Philippe, as you probably have seen it, myself. But most of the people identified on the management team are people, like I've said, that I've worked before previously in separate enterprise. And essentially, we've demonstrated the ability to execute business plan.
就是我们的管理团队，也看了就是分布在各个部门跟各个的公司。
We have a very deep advisory board. First line is more the financials and economic advisors that helped us build the model and advise us on the operational stage where we are today. The bottom line is the mining and more technical advisors that has a good scope of management, research, geolocations, the core expertise required in engineering, selection of extraction technologies. But this, for us, is crucial into our execution plan where we are today.
团队有很多非常资深的顾问跟就是各个方面不同的就是专家在后面支持公司。
I feel like I shouldn't be doing this at a mining association dinner, but there's gold extracted in over 75 countries. Obviously, the darker countries have larger resources and reserves, but just to show that there's 40 million of what we consider artisanal, small-scale gold miners around the world, and they're operating in the 75 countries. Obviously, there's nucleus that are very important in South America, for instance, Africa, and in Asia, Australia, Indonesia, Philippines, obviously China, the Russians, and the stands. But we're demonstrating here essentially that this is global. There's 40 million of them. That means that there are hundreds of projects either currently operating in a very rudimentary environment or fairly sophisticated, but definitely touching all of the different continents.
这是那个世界黄金产地的地图，就分布在世界各个地方都有。
So annually, there's 3,000 tons of gold being extracted every year. There's a demand for higher than that, and usually it's compensated with the amount of gold that is recycled every year. In the past few decades, there's very limited new productions coming online, and the recycling ability has been able to compensate, but there's so much you can recycle up to a certain point. So there is a pressure on the demand at this stage. Two elements to note. 80% of that annual production is produced by 7 million workers working in an industrial environment, the Gold Corp, the New Mount type of operation. And there's only 20% of that 3,000 ton that is produced by the 40 million artisanal gold miners. So this is a massive untapped market today that was never been able to be served by the traditional financial environment, and this is where we solved the problem.
就是世界黄金产链的现状有大约就是每年有3000吨的黄金产量，然后呢700万工业采金从业者，有大约4000万手工和小规模采金从业者，这里就仅只占了20%。
So the opportunity essentially is for providing capitals to that untapped market, the small mines, and essentially creating this mechanism or this platform, this easy way to bring capital to them in a very easy way for us to raise the money, but also to allocate the money, the capital, properly to the mine. And essentially in exchange, we're getting a percentage of the production. For those of you that would be familiar, this looks and smells like a streaming arrangement. We're doing the same thing, but in a novel way and with a passion. There's fair trade aspect to this associated.
这个机遇就是为一些小型的矿商提供必要的资金，满足其投资性支出需要，然后换取产量的分成。
So the list of prospects that we have, this is an old slide, there's about 37 projects, but like I've said, there's hundreds of those potential projects out there. Because we are able to raise fairly easily capital, we will be able to choose the best of the best. Some of the criteria for that would be obviously anything but in situ, so the alluvial, placer, open pit, not too deep reserve, cumulative of 200,000 ounces. We need to have some sort of experienced team on site and safely and politically stable environment where it's accessible for the operation. The point we're trying to highlight here is again that it's basically worldwide, but there's nucleus again, South America, Africa, obviously Canada, and Australia and South Asia.
就是我们富有经验的丰富的团队会去全世界选择一些最佳的小型矿山，然后去采矿，就是最安全、政治稳定的地方。
A little bit in detail about the profile of those mines. Like I've said, we're catering to the 40 million artisanal gold miners, and they're currently operating in over 75 countries. We want to focus on the ability for what we're doing to them is to render their operation legal and formal. We want to focus on cooperatives, where they have multiple claims, either large territory or different claims bunched together in a proximity. Again, focusing on the easily accessible resources. What we mean by cumulative reserve of a minimum of 200,000 ounces, we are doing all of this funding for a minimum of 200,000. So we can move the equipment around until we've reached that point, or until we've reached a lifetime of the resources on those claims. We're focusing on selecting also the experienced team, and we will favor a scale-up operation versus a new virgin operation, and obviously, especially at first, trying to focus on territories and countries and areas that is politically safe, and also ensuring some sort of a basic security.
主要就是选择一些就是安全性比较高的，然后就是在75个国家之中，就是非常有经验的团队会去挑选这些。
So the deal is essentially that we need to establish and validate out of the criteria that we've selected the best of those mines. Once we've made that decision, one of the key elements in that decision is the validations of the business plan. We will be funding basically the capex and the working capital required to execute appropriately their business plan. This is all centric to the budget that we need to validate, and we need to supervise the execution of the business plan. And then essentially, in return for all of this exercise, we're expecting a ROI of 10 times or 1,000%.
交易会验证商业计划，从设备到经营成本到预算，投资回报大概有1000%。
So how we provide the money to those selected projects, selected mines, is essentially determining the budget and approving the budget based on the extraction methodology and the requirement that we find justified for that particular case. We use the mechanism of an advance purchase agreement, which is mimicking what the UN has been using for farming for decades, called contract farming. We're bringing the same concept to the environment of mining for the first time. We're calling this contract farming, but we're basically allocating the money in such way that we actually buy in advance a certain amount in gold. That amount is just by coincidence the amount that they need in their budget to execute the business plan. So essentially, GoldFinX provide the proper funds to the mine, and then the first thing that needs to happen is the mine needs to deliver back the amount that we pre-purchased.
这第一步，那个交易的第一阶段，主要就是一个协议，预购的协议，就是用预算，然后预购协议款，就是for 那个就是 mining。
And in exchange for our contributions and felicitations of this capitalization of the mines, us providing funds and capital to them, we're getting a reward, which is basically a profit share or the royalty production of 20% ongoing for the lifetime of the mine. So essentially, we are in control of the gold coming out of the machinery, and we will carry 100% of the raw gold all the way up to the refinery. We are responsible to pay the 80% back to the co-op. The 20%, which is the production share that comes to us, is divided between a certain amount that goes into a reserve or a vault, a bank safe in Switzerland, and it's stored there permanently. This will serve as the protection to our GICs, our cryptocurrency, that we use to raise funds. The 5% remaining is the revenue of the fintech, GoldFinX.
这是一个受保护的代币，以黄金作为最终的保障手段，那个就是说储存的有矿山大约80%，然后信贷那边有15%， GoldFinX 有5%，然后主要就是以瑞士银行金库做保障。
So we have created our own cryptocurrency called the GICs, and we call this a protected coin. We are able to already have counted a few months of sales, and today we have about 7 million euros raised. We have an objective of 250 million coins sold. We are launching publicly. We're currently in the private sales and the pre-sale operation of this PCO, protected coin offering, and we will be launching the public sale in July, and we will be trading the GICs on exchanges in December before the end of the year. And the GICs has been designed on the platform of the ERC20, the Ethereum ecosystem, to provide the flexibility that we need for the liquidity once it's on the exchange.
这个受保护的代币就是2019年，就今年的7月会正式推出来，12月会在主要的交易所上市交易，会用一个 ERC 20的平台做一个交易。
Essentially, our protected coin is a very well reflected 5-6 months in the process, very expensive consultations legally. In partnership with our legal firm in Singapore and the Monetary Authority of Singapore, to basically position this coin in such a way that we operate in the unregulated environment. So the GICs has the best of both worlds between the utility token and the security token, but we operate in a utility token with a legal opinion from the legal attorneys that was helping us. So essentially, that allows us the ability to sell the GICs in an unregulated environment, pretty much everywhere on the planet. We've started in Europe, had immense success with the German-speaking countries. This is continuing. Now we're here. We've been here for 8 weeks, and there was a great response out of what we call the Chinese markets, Hong Kong, Malaysia, and Singapore. And we believe that this is on the right path for us to basically be able to complete the funding with the Chinese market.
这代币会到时候会用混合币的一种形式，有一种是使用型的代币和证券型的代币。公司现在这边已经来了8个礼拜，就是各方面的就是反应非常热烈，所以觉得在这个中国跟香港的这个市场是应该发展非常好的。
So once more to image the protection effect of our hybrid GICs coin. The split between the royalty that we're getting of 20%, which is the 15% that goes permanently stored into this vault in Switzerland, the 5% that is the revenue of the fintech, and the 80% that goes back to the mine. Focusing on the GICs 15% portion. This is accumulating every month into the Swiss vault. This is going to give you two things, two benefits. The first benefit is the protection over our GICs. The GICs, this hybrid protected coin, is linked technically via the smart contract to the responsibility and the protection of the value that is accumulating in the reserve. So for any reasons, if the GICs, our cryptocurrency, is no longer able to exist, there's a condition that would trigger the sale of the gold in the reserve, and then the value would be distributed, prorated, amongst all of the GICs owners.
代币的就是它的受保护会以黄金总产量的15%，然后最主要就是瑞士银行的金库就是会保护这个就是代币。
One of the key points in this structure, the way that we build this business model, is the ability to count on this protection. The value of the gold accumulating every month is the essence of the business model. Very often, and Mr. Sun presented this early, there are dozens and dozens of those gold-backed business model out there. Some with some success, some with little success. The essence of what we have today and what we believe to be exclusive when it comes to funding the gold mine is the ability to have this protection of the GICs, but the value increasing every month. So it's not like someone building a project like this, raising some money, and then with that money basically going and buying gold as a way of guaranteeing and protecting, which this becomes a static exercise and basically more of a cost of doing business. Us, the ability to extract the gold and place a portion of that gold into that reserve increasing every month, is this continuing increase in protection.
主要的这个保障手段就是说，每个月都有就是黄金产量或者是储存去到瑞士银行，所以这就是说非常的极度的保障了这个代币的安全性。
This is the effect of what we were discussing earlier. Essentially, this is all projection, so the forecast is not going to be right. It's going to be plus or minus, but to image the situation here, if we fund more than 15 mines, let's say the forecast of 15 billion produced over 10 plus years, in the GICs reserve in Switzerland, you should have more than 2 billion. Regardless of what that amount is going to grow month to month. But this is what we described earlier. Essentially, there's two benefits to this. The value increases to protect the original investment. So if there's any problem with the GICs, GoldFinX goes bankrupt, is destroyed, the entire management is disappeared, the actual GICs is still protected because of the gold in the reserve. The reserve is a separate ownership outside of the GoldFinX environment. The gold accumulating in the reserve, essentially, like I've said, if there's any problem with the GICs, the reserve is going to be liquidated, and then the proceeds is going to be distributed to all of their GICs owner. This is the protected element. The point I'm trying to present is that it also fairly, with some ease, the ability to project in time of the price of the crypto, which is extremely rare in a crypto environment, that you could say that you could project the price, which is essentially what we're able to do here, because the value increases every month, but there's a fixed amount of coins of 250 million. So this is basically establish the floor price of that GICs. So if you're accepting the forecast, basically you're able to project in time the actual floor price of that GICs. So the protection and then the ability to foresee an increase into the GICs price.
这个是一个社保部的代币，因为就算公司有什么，就是比如说发展不好啊，或者是说就算退一万步说破产或怎么样，但是都不会影响这个代币，因为这个是有一个黄金的储备一直在那里，所以储备是非常丰富的，也不会影响到任何的代币的情况。
And then one last thing, what we're forecasting is essentially the value of the gold in the reserve should be 10 times higher than the original investment of the 250 million, hence the expected return of a minimum of 10 times the investment.
金库中的黄金储备达到投资额的10倍，所以就是稳定性非常高。
Okay, so this is where the separations of the two is explained, and this is very important. On the left is the GoldFinX operation, and on the right is the actual trust, the trust that is created and fully independent of GoldFinX. This is under the management and the responsibility of a board of trustees that is based out of Singapore, and then the gold is going to be stored in Switzerland in a respected vault. So essentially, GoldFinX finance the mines start producing, the gold, the raw gold ends up at the refinery. Once it's at the refinery, there's a good portion that is accumulating into the vault. This is where there's this separation of state in between the GoldFinX, the fintech company, and then the actual trust responsible for the vault.
这是怎么运作的呢？就是说，左边这边就是说矿产的融资啊、精炼厂啊这些，然后就是这右边的是就是信贷，然后新加坡的受托管理委员会，然后呢金库会是在瑞士储存。
All right, so this is the heart of this entire presentation. If you have 2 minutes of attention, this is your 2 minutes where you need to focus. Essentially, we created the GIX as part of the platform for GoldFinX. So the GIX coin, our protected coin, is the element and the mechanism that we use to raise the funds. Basically, we're selling the GIX. We've already sold 7 million every month, selling 1 or 2 without doing much. But we expect and have high expectations out of the Chinese markets, and we've been here for 8 weeks, and there's great response, so we believe that we will certainly progress out of the Chinese markets. So essentially, once we have the funds, regardless of how much we raise, even if we stop today, then we take all of the money that we've raised and then basically allocate that money to the mines. So we raise a little, we allocate a little. We raise more money, we allocate more money, right? This is how we allocate the money from essentially raising the funds to the mine is through this advance purchase agreement, which is basically we're buying in advance a certain amount of gold that is the exact same amount of the budget that they need to execute the business plan. Once they are fully funded, the equipment is on site, they've been trained, we are supervising, we're responsible for security and logistics on the site. At one point, they start operating and digging gold out of the ground. From that point on, 2 things needs to happen. The first thing is they need to deliver the gold that we pre-purchased. Let's say we advance and pre-purchased $3 million, which was the requirement of their budget, capital, and work capital. So at the start of production, they need to deliver this 3 million. The 3 million that they deliver, 100% of that gold is stored permanently into the vault. Once they deliver the full amount, from that point on, starts the royalty production, the share, the 20%. From that point on, and for the lifetime of the mine, 75% of the gold that we receive, part of that 20%, the vast majority, is also stored permanently into the vault. So there's 2 ways that gold is accumulating in the vault. The advance purchase, the amount that we pre-purchase, and then the ongoing royalty productions that we have, 75% of that gold goes into the vault. From that vault, accumulating in value every month, provides the 2 benefit to the GIX investors, the GIX coin. It provides for the protection, like I've said, if there's any situation that the GICs would be prevented to continue to exist, the gold would be sold, and then the proceed would be distributed amongst all of the GICs owners. And the other ability is if you're able to see that there's a finite amount of coins, but then the protection is increasing in value, then you're able to project the floor price in time. So if you're, if you can see and extrapolate the forecast, then you could extrapolate the floor price of the GICs. This is a lot.
这个就是怎么去运作，就是首先就是要预购，然后去到金矿那边就是运营，然后黄金产量，然后黄金的交托跟生产份额，然后最后去到金库的黄金，然后就是代币的保值跟增值。
Alright, so this is imaging the relationship with the price appreciations. Keep in mind that the return on investment is the main reasons why we're selling the coins and the benefit for the investors, the people that buy the coins. They're buying the coins today at the introductory price, and it's going to be 5, 10, 20 times that amount in time. This is where you make money as an investor. Essentially, this is the explanations for the protection aspect. The gold in the trust is essentially the floor price, right? And this is what is somewhat projectable in time if you accept that there's a forecast and then the gold is going to be accumulating every month. On the blue side, essentially, we anticipate that early on people will see and appreciate this increase, and there will be some sort of market movement upward. Speculations or foreseeing the ability to see that the gold is going to be 10 to 20 to 30 times the original investment, and then people will be able to buy the coins. The black line is the potential extreme speculations that could happen. For any type of reasons, people seeing in a very accelerated way. So, in between the minimum logical floor price, the expected market, and then the potential upswing, around first, second, and third year, we anticipate the price to be at a certain level.
公司的未来价值就是黄金的储备保障了公司的底线价值，然后一旦上市之后呢，加密货币的基金会、机构的投资者和市场作价者将创造重要的需求。然后，2017年至2018年之间，加密货币价格的新一轮暴涨将带动公司估值层次数字会增长。
So the potential on the investor point of view essentially is buying the GICs per coin of €2 out of the public price, but buying at a discount during the pre-sale. Ensuring that there is enough liquidity on the major exchange when it's on the crypto exchange, when it's listed at the end of this year. Providing an easy way to purchase through back offices that we've developed. Everything is online for us. And the reference I was making earlier about the projections for 2019 and 2020, we're expecting a price of about €5, 4 to 6 for next year. Starting on the exchange, we're introducing the GICs on the crypto exchange at €2, and then we anticipate this appreciation is coming fairly rapidly, but then steady. So the GICs is not considered a stable coin, but it's considered a more stable growth coin.
公开发行的基础上，在这个公开发行的句子上有折扣，然后19年今年的12月，主要交易所的流动性也很高，就是应该在今年的12月会在4至6欧元一块，然后2022就是1年之后会应该就是估计就是保守的估计会在8至10欧元。
So this first segment was essentially the financial segment. You know, what's in it for the miners, you know, to be able to have access to capital, otherwise almost an impossibility for them to have access to. And then the expected return on investment for the investor. In reality, there's another real reasons why we're doing this. There's a social impact, there's a cost of not doing anything. Today, the 40 million artisanal gold miners do not have access to funds. There's no way for them, it's extremely difficult for them to have access to capital. What we're trying to do is basically change literally their life and the community of the gold miners around the world. Today, most of you probably are fairly well versed on the topic, but just in case, if you don't have access to capital, you don't have access to machinery. You use manual process, prehistoric methods, and those methods is very often centric to using harsh chemical, mercury and cyanide. Mercury, just to image for those that are not very familiar, mercury works extremely well. It's some sort of a chemical magnet, essentially. It attracts all of the gold dust in a slurry, in a sand, oil, water base. But there's a bad side of mercury. Mercury is extremely toxic. It's a heavy metal. So at the bottom portion, you can see that it works well to attract all of the gold dust, but it also amalgamates with the mercury. You need to vaporize the mercury at one point before you sell or before you distribute. And this is where handling the mercury is toxic, and then during the vaporization of that process is also extremely toxic. So the miners during the day, when they extract the gold, they handle the toxic chemical. At the end of their day, they bring those nuggets filled with mercury at home, and usually the wife or someone in the kitchen is vaporizing those nuggets, and this is basically contaminating the rest of the family. Just as an example, I lived in Peru for about a year prior to this project, and I was trying to organize a co-op along those lines. My business partner was an elected official, a senator of Peru. He had the backing of the government. There was a formalizations and legalization program that was fantastic. I was meeting with the co-op, the miners, and then every time I had this feeling I was meeting with zombies, because the white of the eye is no longer white, it's yellow, and it's injected with blood. And then you look at them, you know that their life expectancy has nothing to do with mine. So every now and then, they brought their kids, 10, 12 years old at the meeting. You know that the kids have started working on the mine, and you know for a fact that the conditions are getting worse. So the life expectancy of the kids, it's even less than the fathers. So long story short, I don't want to start crying anybody here, but essentially this is the real reason why we're doing this. Yes, everybody is going to be making money, and it's going to be changing the way that mines are funded, but there's a real reasons, which is basically bringing this horrific, harsh condition. I'll spare you the details about the conditions of the kids and women in that community environment. We want to bring them away from this prehistoric environment, horrific conditions, into paradise, right? We want to bring them machinery that's going to basically render mercury and cyanide, or the way that they're using it, obsolete and not needed, in such a way that it's going to better the community. They will be able to get the proper legal status from the government. They will be paying their royalty. The government's going to be getting their tax, and then the tax will be reinvested. The community will become safer. It's going to change drastically the life of the community. I just realized it's going to be a challenge for you.
因为就是说，这个除了投资赚钱之外呢，也对社会要造成一个积极的影响。因为很多很贫穷的就是国家，因为他们没有资金去采矿，也没有就是设备去采矿，所以他们都是用人手的 所以造成身体的损害跟家庭的就是不幸，所以我们就赚钱之余，还会对社会有一个正面的稳定的影响。
So the impact obviously is on the community, but also obviously on the environment. This is along the lines of the recommendations of the United Nations and World Bank and large NGOs that have spent a lot of money trying to determine how to fix this horrific condition that the small gold miners around the world are operating and all the impact they have on the environment and on their community. We have this possibility to change drastically the environment. Just one example, I don't think that there's fish on the menu tonight, but another reasons why we're not supposed to be eating so much fish in our diet, it's because of the mercury accumulation in the fish. And it comes predominantly from the small gold mine operations worldwide. Now figure that the fish is in the middle of the ocean, and then the gold extraction is usually in the jungle way inside the country. So the trail of devastation is very important. So this is another way that we're extremely sensitive, which is the potential impact that we will have on the environment, and along the lines of what the guidance of the United Nations and the World Banks and large NGOs have been, hoping for in the past.
对一个环境的平衡做一个积极的影响，就是会对一个就是环境的污染这些都会有一个积极的影响。我们做这个投资的话。
So essentially, let me leave you on this note. This is an innovative way. This is a financing platform that we've developed, thankfully created by the new technology that has made this creation possible. And we're talking about the blockchain, and we're talking about the cryptocurrency. We've been able to assemble this mechanism to be able to source the money, distribute the money in a fair trade environment in a sustainable way that's going to have a serious impact to the community and the environment. And it just happened to be making fair trade profitable, meaning that everybody gets their expected return. The investor sees a high return on their investment. The miners get their money, which otherwise it would be impossible to finance. And then ultimately the environment and the community gains. Just a quick note, we're in the sale of the token in an unregulated environment. And then there's a certain discount, which there's a number appearing on the screen, that is accessible to whoever wants to consume the gigs. And this is going to be available for 7 days. You just need to use the code that is appearing on that screen.
最后就请把 GoldFinX 放在你的钱包里面，它是你钱包里面的一个金矿。
And on this note, this concludes the presentations. Thank you very much for your attention.